you all make something, whether it's a cartoon or if it's from a website or something, you go into OneNote and you see your names here on the side. And underneath it, all of you have these links, handouts, class notes, homework, quizzes, videos. And so you go to homework, you'll have a page there, and you type in the date, homework for August 5th. And he's got a picture, cartoon, and you just go up to the menu and do insert, browse to your computer, have where you got it, and you'll paste it in there. So that's how you can get it to. Any questions on that? All right, so let's take a look. We've seen Alan's, and so it starts off with this comic strip is called Beatrice the Baboon, and it starts off with that quote from the paper about the baboons making the 5 vowel sounds. And so here's Beatrice. She's practicing A-E-I-O-U, A-E-I-O-U. And Jojo comes along and he says, "Hey, Beatrice, what are you doing?" And Beatrice says, "I'm practicing my English vowel sounds." And he says, "Why English? Here in Africa, we speak Zulu, which has 8 vowels." Says, "But over millions of years, my descendants will evolve and migrate to America." And Jojo says, "You're bananas. I'm off to watch the Planet Games." So, see, you even laughed at that, Jonathan. You can do that. You can do better. All right, let's. Ethan, you were at our house last month, right? And what were you watching? You don't want to admit it, right? It was really Nathan watching, right? And Lydia. We're watching Teen Titans. And this is how one of the cartoons started. Yeah. Nice sound. So what's that show? Show Evolution. Started the process. So kids are going to have it in cartoons. I was actually working a crossword puzzle this week, and one of the clues was cousin of human. The answer was 8. So it's nearly everywhere that we see evolution being mentioned or taught. Yeah, that's the big question they talk about, and we'll talk a little bit about that a little bit later. But our main concern as parents is what's being done in schools. And so I told you we talked about the fruits of evolution this morning. Okay. Uh, let's think a little bit about teachers, and that's not every teacher, some teachers' attitude toward evolution, parents. And again, what's happened in the schools? Kind of went through these verses while we were waiting on everybody to get here. So we as parents do have that responsibility. Eugenie Scott was director of the National Center for Science Education for a number of years. She just retired a couple of years ago, I think. And in an article she and another lady wrote, she said that evolution is one of the most important ideas in human intellectual history. Students have a right to learn it. Students and adults deprived of this knowledge are scientifically illiterate and ill-prepared for life in a global, competitive world. Students given merely once-over or light instruction in evolution are woefully undereducated. And so this is, again, the idea of a lot of people that they think you really need to know evolution or you're not even going to be successful in life. She went on to say the newly released Next Generation Science Standards will require teachers in states adopting them to teach both evolution and climate change. In states that adopt the standards, students will receive more instruction in evolution and climate change than they currently do. And that process is still ongoing. I'm not sure what Indiana's going to do about it. But there's, last time I looked, I think it's about 16 states that had accepted the Next Generation Science Standards. When we talk about standards in schools, why is that important? This article says that standards have the potential to influence all the fundamental components of life science education. This is the function of standards. By fundamental components, I'm referring to school programs, teacher classroom practices, teacher education, certification, state standards, and assessments. And so standards really are that. They set the standard for what's going to be taught in the classroom. And not only we talk, pre-K through 12, but in preparing teachers for the classroom at college level, in teacher education, certification. Again, the emphasis there is going to be prepare them to teach, educate evolution. The National Science Teachers Association has a listserv, and that's basically where they can email each other and discuss, I need a lesson on X, and somebody will send it to the list and talk about other problems they might be having in the classroom. See, some of you may have made the listservs, done something crazy in the class. This particular, they were discussing studying evolution, and this teacher says that she's the department chair and in charge of hiring new teachers. She says the last question I've posed to candidates during the interview is evolution is part of the curriculum in our school. How would you handle teaching that topic? She wanted to say, I would never hire a biology teacher that does not accept the science of evolution and understand the importance of evolution and explaining all other facets of biology. And so, again, you see a teacher's attitude toward that. This person writes and says, I specifically sought permission to include the standard on natural selection and evolution for this article. My intention is to send a clear and unequivocal signal that biological evolution will be included in the Next Generation Science Standards. Indiana is praised for their curriculum standards as being considered by educators as excellent in terms of their coverage of evolution. So we as residents in Indiana can really expect evolution to be hit hard in instruction and teaching our children. This teacher says, as a society, we need to support evolution education just like it needs to be taught every day. It used to be a lot of teachers were nervous about teaching evolution. They'd save it to the last part of the semester and try to cover as quickly as possible. That's no longer true. They're doing it every day. I make it a personal goal to discuss evolution every day in class, said this teacher. And what's their attitude toward parents? Well, this teacher said, I really do not care one iota this parent's religious beliefs. Again, this discussion on the listserv, a teacher had raised the question that one parent wanted to take their child out of the class when evolution was being taught. It said the teacher of the school should not allow the student to be excused from any unit. Evolution is a scientific theory. We as science teachers are teaching the components, facts, and evidence that are part of this scientific theory. And then there's the idea of breaking down the religious barriers. Address directly the likely cultural, religious concerns with evolution. Do so early on so as to break down the barriers that keep many students from hearing what you say. Present evolution appropriately as conflicting with none but the most fundamentalist religious tenets that demand a literal translation of the Bible. So the only ones that teachers say they need to be concerned about is those who, of course, literally believe the account in Genesis. If a person's worldview holds that the Bible, as literally translated, is the ultimate authority on all things, both scientific and non-scientific, that particular worldview will clearly conflict with modern evolution instruction. So there is a conflict between evolution and those who believe Scripture. Education Week is one of the most prominent education publications in the country. It says the creationists are not right, that the world's only 6,000 years old, or that our species descended from two innocent ancestors in an Iraqi garden. They're not right when they suggest that studying evolution force feeds an anti-Christian religion down their kids' throats. And again, we could go on and on, but there's other things that we get in there. This one's kind of interesting. It talks about, again, the different types of beliefs that religious people have. The instructor describes special creation, theistic evolution, agnostic evolution, atheistic evolution. He described how special creation is in direct conflict with scientific evidence, while theistic evolution, all the others, are not in conflict with scientific evidence. So let's talk about the fruits of evolution. I told y'all that was kind of part of your homework, was to think about, if evolution is true, then what else is true? That would be a consequence of evolution. Everybody get something? God wouldn't exist. There are theistic evolution, so there's some that would compromise that, but obviously, as related to religion and the Bible would be wrong. Take it as historically accurate. So let's think about that first of all as a fruit of evolution, that it contradicts the Bible, or maybe we would have part of that as the idea in God doesn't exist. At the Scopes trial, and the Scopes trial was 1925. Evolution was starting to be taught in schools. Darwin's book was published in 1859, Origin of Species. And so it kind of took a while, to kind of catch on. It was in England. We're in America. And so about the beginning of the century, evolution started to be taught in the United States. And there were people that objected to it then, just as they are now. And a lot of what we call fundamentalist religions that way. And American Civil Liberty Union, ACLU, wanted to have a test case. Tennessee passed a law, you can't teach evolution. And so the city of Dayton, they wanted some publicity, so they had the trial there. And one of the attorneys was Dudley Malone. Here, the trial was in Tennessee. They brought in people from all over, big shots as well. He was from New York. He said during the trial, so that there shall be no mistaking and that no one shall be able to misinterpret or misrepresent our position, we wish to state at the beginning of the case that the defense believes that there is a direct conflict between the theory of evolution and the theories of creation as set forth in the book of Genesis. So, even as we saw a couple of those teachers mentioned, you can't really take the Bible as fact, literally, as they sometimes say, and evolution at the same time. They contradict each other. So that is a fruit, if you will, a consequence of that. He went on to say, neither do we believe that the stories of creation set forth in the Bible are reconcilable, should be, are scientifically correct. The defense will also prove by credible testimony that there is more than one theory of creation set forth in the Bible and that they're conflicting. And you may even hear that in school, that there's two stories of creation in the book of Genesis. Genesis chapter 1 and another one in chapter 2. This is a modern day textbook, and it says in 1973, anti-evolutionists in Arkansas, Tennessee, Louisiana passed identical bills calling for equal time for teaching evolution and creationism, the biblical myth that the universe was created in a Judeo-Christian God in 7 days. And so they refer to it as a biblical myth. So if that's your textbook, that's what, again, you're being taught in that particular classroom. This article in Science Illustrated says each day in the Babylonian week was named after one of these celestial bodies, with one day set aside for recreation. The Babylonian week may have been the source of the 7-day week presented in the Book Testament. So instead of taking the Bible as the source, they're going to teach you that, well, the Bible borrowed it from the Babylonians. That's how that story got into the Bible. So that, again, trying to discredit the story as we read in the Scripture. This one says, in reality, the only contribution that science can make to the ideas of religion is atheism. So, he's right. If we want to take evolution as true, then God doesn't exist. The Bible is wrong. All that again together. So we've got that one as a fruit. If I get another one. Okay, no afterlife. And we probably can put that in the same category as contradicting the Bible, because it's the Bible that teaches us about the afterlife. That really anything the Bible teaches us about our spiritual nature, the image of God, and all that would be gone if evolution is true. Anything else? Human one? The human race would be different. How would it be different? It wouldn't be a unique species. What do they say about primitive man? Maybe some of the terms you've heard used about what mankind was like early more related to monkeys. Uh, Brother Welch said a while ago, we're not getting smarter, but they think we are getting smarter. And yeah, caveman's, kind of dumb. He probably grunted a lot. Uh, yeah. So, in a sense, kind of related to that is the idea of racism. This is the book that was being used by John Scopes. He was the fellow teacher put on trial in the Scopes trial. And he supposedly taught evolution from hunters. It's called civic biology. And on page 196 of that book, it says, at the present time, there exist upon the earth 5 races or varieties of man. These are the Ethiopian or Negro type, originated in Africa. Finally, the highest type of all, the Caucasians, represented by the civilized white inhabitants of Europe and America. And so, especially again early on with evolution, they don't like to talk about this part so much today. But it was racist, because if you're closer related to an ancient ancestor that was an ape-like creature, then you're probably not as bright as somebody who's farther away from that ancestor. Thomas Huxley was called Darwin's bulldog. He again pushed evolution and tried to promote it. He says that no rational man believes that the average Negro is the equal, still less the superior, of the average white man. Again, that's what they believe as a part of the idea of our evolving from a lower form of animal. Darwin, in his second major book, Descent of Man, said at some future period, not very distant as measured by centuries, the civilized races of man will almost certainly exterminate and replace throughout the world the savage races. And so again, he believed in savage races and that these would eventually be eliminated. Have y'all studied World War II yet? So you know who was the leader of Germany? Adolf Hitler, right? And a lot of the Germans believed that the German people were superior in their race. And that's why they tried to get rid of the Jews and other individuals. And again, all that goes back to the idea of evolution. Arthur Keith wrote that the German Führer, as I have, and that's Hitler, as I have consistently maintained, is an evolutionist. He has consciously sought to make the practice of Germany conform to the theory of evolution. And one of the Germans who really pushed that idea was named Ernst Haeckel. And Haeckel drew a series of pictures that made all the embryos kind of look alike. And that's sometimes used as an evidence for evolution, as we'll talk about later in the series of lessons. He was a German biologist, and he was a very good illustrator. And he developed the idea of animals going through stages of their ancestors' evolution, like this theory, while in the womb or in the egg. And Stephen Gould said about him that he was the chief apostle of evolution in Germany. His evolutionary racism is called in the German people, for racial purity and unflinching devotion to a just state, his conferring upon favored races the right to dominate others, all contributed to rise Nazism. So again, very racist-based idea coming from evolution. Evolution is true. Why again isn't this type of racism true as well? I mentioned you don't see a lot of evolutionists today talking about that because that's not politically correct. But sometimes it slips out. James Watson was one of the men who discovered the shape, the double helix of DNA. He's a biologist, geneticist, and he was supposed to discover the structure of DNA in 1953. And here's what he said in an article, an interview. He says that it is inherently gloomy about the prospect of Africa because all of our social policies are based on the fact that their intelligence is the same as ours, whereas all the testing says not really. And I know that this is a hot potato. It's going to be difficult to address. He writes that there's no firm reason to anticipate that the intellectual capabilities of peoples geographically separated in their evolution should prove to have evolved identically. And so, again, he believes that there's people in Africa that's not going to be as smart as white people. And so, yeah, it's still around. When you really take a look at sometimes when they're caught off guard of what they say, things like that. So that is, I think we can list that again as a fruit of evolution. Does anybody have something else? Truth and morals would be subjective. Very good. So let's see if we can look at that real quick. Biology of morality. This fellow writes, says, evolution is also critically about conveying an understanding of who we are as moral beings in the context of our organic history. No introductory biology course can be considered complete without addressing the evolution of morality. And so they do have a morality. It's not the Bible's. So whose is it? We find much of value in Darwin's original descent of man. Now, on the occasion of Darwin's bicentennial, we are ready to teach a deeper understanding of the biology of morality. And so this fellow thinks Darwin's Descent of Man, that book we quoted from a while ago about racism, that's the book that would teach us, give us a good background, a good starting point for evolution, evolutionary morality. This fellow talks about how, he says, on this issue, there's a growing evidence that many behaviors we designate as moral have forerunners in automatic, unconscious, pre-rational processes present not only in humans but in many other species. If all we are is material, physical, natural, then the things that we do are just natural, really not something that we are planned out or that we decide to do. This article went on to say it might be too strong to claim that evolution has wired us for sin, but excessive indulgence in lust or greed could certainly put you ahead of your competitors. Everybody heard of the expression survival of the fittest? Whoever's stronger is going to, and wiser, is going to survive as a creature. So, we know what the Bible says about lust and how to control certain things. But this fellow says, that really gives you an advantage from an evolutionary standpoint. Time had to cover infidelity, not being faithful in marriage. That may be in our genes. Well, if it's in our genes, if it's natural, then how can we say adultery is wrong? The Bible would have to be wrong about that. Even rape. These two fellows wrote a book that talked about rape and battery, infanticide, killing of infants. These three styles of male violence make sense in particular contexts. That is, that's a part of nature. So how can we say that everybody who is guilty of rape would be wrong? If killing can increase an individual's reproductive success, then it is favored. Again, that goes back to that idea of survival of the fittest. That's why Darwin believed that was a part of the natural selection process that leads to, again, the origin of species. They weren't the only ones that took that view. Here are a couple others. They say one cannot understand evolutionary explanations of rape, much less evaluate them without a solid grasp of evolutionary theory. So if evolution is true, we as well forget about morals, because we're just animals and we just do things that are natural, and that's kind of where we wind up. Not at K-12. This is taught in college. These fellows are professors. Any other questions or comments? Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, if from nature's standpoint, your job is to produce as many offspring as you can, and you need to get rid of the competition to do that, then that's what he's saying here. Murder's okay. And that's, you see the natural movies and TV shows where the rams are butting heads, or the moose are fighting each other. That's because one's going to be the winner, and he gets to have all the females. So if that's true in the animal world, animal kingdom, find it true of us as well. Yeah, forget that. Throw that out. For what? That's because of our culture and the way other races, the Muslims are having as many babies as they can. So they would blame it on culture more than physical problems. I wanted to get to Brother Whitaker mentioned the idea of, are we still evolving? And that kind of goes with the idea that another fruit of evolution is the idea that we can create Superman. But we'll have to say that for next time. Let me end with this quote from a judge back in the 80s. He says, this monkey mythology of Darwin is the cause of permissiveness, brokenness. promiscuity, pills, prophylactics, perversion, pregnancies, abortions, pornotherapy, pollution, poisoning, litigation, crime, that's the fruit of evolution. And I think, that was 81. So 30, almost 40 years ago. And I think we see how true that is. So for next week, I've got a couple more fruits we can talk about. And I was going to go into the evidences that are offered for evolution, but I think I'm going to hold off on that a couple of weeks. Instead, let's just go back to Genesis. We'll talk a little bit about Genesis and make sure we've got a good foundation for what is actually stated in the first few chapters of Genesis, and also look at the flood and the consequences that it would have had on the earth. Having that background before we get into looking at what evolution says. So for next week, go ahead and read the first two chapters of Genesis. Kind of, make a list of what's happening on each day and see what we're looking at. And we'll plan to quickly cover maybe a couple more fruits of evolution and then look at Genesis. Any other questions or comments for me? The two story. They say Genesis 1 is one account and Genesis 2 is another account. And that obviously in Genesis 2, he's talking about the creation of Adam and Eve. They're in the garden. And you don't read of that in chapter 1. So because of that,